Well, black people are Native Americans. We've had, a lot of proof that, you know, some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
What are they doing here? They're Indians.
This is one of my many unsuccessful experiments. You see, with Indians, there's absolutely nothing to be done. There's the same difference between a Negro and an Indian as there is between a dog and a coyote. You can put a dog on a leash, beat him, and he'll always be there to lick your feet. Take away a coyote's liberty, and you've cut off his heir. An Indian will never be a slave. No one has ever been able to make them reproduce in captivity. They do not eat, they do not talk, they do not sleep, they do not make love.
There are several things that are significant about it. Of course, one of them is the way that colonialism tries to develop all kinds of elaborate classification terms for different kinds of people, but that's another subject. The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
After the African, LeVar Burton, had been told that his name was to be Toby, and he refused it, and he was beaten to make him say his name was Toby.
That was the dramatization. How much of that actually was recounted to you? I mean, was there a lot of interweaving?
A lot of it, I thought maybe you were going to ask, and maybe you are in another way, is how much of the book is fact and how much is fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction.
Now, this is just a tiny bit of information now.
But they take it as huge.
Right, because it's cracking open the door.
There's a place in Africa you could say that I'm from.
A tribe?
A tribe? I am thrilled. It puts a name, a place, a location, a people.
Hank really is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
He
the
didn't
largest...
exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns. We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
it's less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%.
And that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Hey y'all, we're back. Happy Educational Friday. We are back. Shout out to everybody in the building. Y'all come on in here, get the likes up on the video. It is Educational Friday, y'all. If y'all are new to the channel, first of all, I would like to welcome you. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and also make sure if you're on the replay game, you drop down in the comments and let me know what you or what you thought, about this week's Educational Friday. Now, this week, we're going to speak about Black wealth. And we're going to talk about Black Americans during the Gilded Age and how well we did all the way up until Jim Crow. Well, I ain't going to say Jim Crow, all the way up until the civil rights, okay? So we're going to get into that today. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is it's not highlighted enough how much we owned before we got here. See, one of the main reasons why I tell everybody in Black America to do their genealogy is because a lot of us, a large number of us, have ancestors who were stolen from, okay? And the way to get that back through reparations or whatever is through doing your genealogy and finding out who are these family members and what did they do and where they came from. You know, so often I get people that come and hit me up through the email or even through Super Chat. And they say, oh, Vu, thank you so much. Thank you so much for telling me about genealogy. I did my genealogy and I found out my grandmother owned this. Or I did my genealogy and I found out my grandfather owned that. Or I did my genealogy and I found out we were this or we were that. It's so freeing and it's literally all that you need, you know? So the reason why I push genealogy, number one, is so that you can find out who you are and expand your own mind, number one. But number two, I do it because I know that we're fighting for reparations and I understand that identity is the key to freedom. So in order to get that freedom, you have to know who you are and where you came from. And the only way to do that is through genealogy, not a DNA test or any of those other things, simply through genealogy. Why is that an ambulance? Y'all get it? Girl, it's a whole ambulance. No, that's a fire truck. Anyways, that's why I wanted to do it so that you guys, that's why I tell you guys every day to do genealogy so that you can know who you are and free and expand your mind and get into this heaven. See, this is what I figured out last year, or was it the year before last? When I went to Antigua, whatever year it was, I went to Antigua. I visited Antigua and I remember looking around at all of these people and I kept saying to myself, outside of myself, I'm probably the only Black American on this entire resort or on this entire thing. Everybody else is either locals or it's clears and Asians, people who are vacationing. And I thought to myself, I said, I feel bad for the local people because they will never get to see this side of their own island. It's literally taken away from them, and the others get to have their paradise or their heaven on earth. And I remember saying to myself, I said, you know what, Stove? I'm not waiting to die to go to heaven. I'm about to get my heaven on earth. But I also said it sucked for the people because these people are literally pushed out of their own paradise, okay? So I'm saying all that to say, if the people knew who they were on that island, we wouldn't be here or they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't have those issues. But the reason why it works like that is because, number one, those prime ministers be in on it. They sell the people to the government. But number two, the mass majority of the people do not know who they are. And that is why things like this happen. So we're fighting for this all over. Melanated people all over are fighting for it. But particularly this week, we're going to get into Black America, okay? So y'all get the likes up on the video. Let me read this super chat. Brandon Prather, thank you so much for the super chat, says all they try to do is play on us. Of course, after a while, the games are going to be, they're not going to be able to be played after a while. Because what's going to happen is once people start really and truly waking up, then it's going to be a problem for the powers that be because then they won't be able to hide behind the facades and the names and all of that stuff. They won't be able to hide behind the lies. And then I believe is where we'll go to war. That's when I think we'll have the actual war because then it's kind of like somebody trying to sneak rob you. Like, I'll give you a better example. I remember this dude from out the 7 War in New Orleans. I'll never forget. I remember this dude was talking about how somebody tried to rob him, but he knew who it was because he heard his voice. So he was like, so the nigga tried to rob him and he was like, nigga, I know who you is. You know what I'm saying? And then that infuriated the guy who was holding him up or the one who had the gun who was doing the robbing. It infuriated him more to where he wanted to shoot the dude. That's what happens, or that's what is happening with us. So right now, we're still asleep. A lot of us are still asleep. So they're still able to use the witchcraft, play on our tops. You know what I'm saying? They still able to do that without a hitch because the mass majority of us are knocked out comatose. But when we start to wake up and those tactics don't work anymore, then they're going to get like the guy who was holding up the guy. He just want to start shooting. That's what's going to happen. The enemy then, once we start waking up big enough, they're going to want to go straight to war. So this is why I tell everybody to do genealogy and also grounding in meditation and prayer because that's one of the things. We're going to go to war. I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if I'm going to be at the war in my lifetime or in this lifetime, but a war is going to happen. It's happening, okay? So we're going to talk about the Gilded Age in Black America. Let's get into it. Y'all get the likes up on the video, okay? Before we get into Black America, let's get into the Gilded Age itself, okay? For a lot of people may not know what the Gilded Age was, and I'm not going to lie. Girl, somebody playing on my thing. I'm sorry. I was reading the email. Video cannot be monetized in this block. I'm gonna have to check my morning juice. Girl, people be playing by me. I cannot wait. We're in a smaller group. I cannot wait until the day where I never have to talk to the people that I know in real life. I swear to God. Like, not all the people, but there's a group of people that I know in real life that I cannot wait until the day that they are a figment of my past. Does that make sense? Because I am of the belief that somebody I know in real life, I know it. Somebody I know in real life be playing with my channel. You know what I'm saying? And outside of just waiting for that person to die, I really just hope and wish for the day that that person would find something better to do. And not just that person, all of the people that I want nothing to do with anymore. I'm done with them people. And I really hope and pray for the day that I get to a point where these people cannot reach me. You see what I'm saying? Like, on my soul. And I talk to y'all over here on Educational Friday. It's a smaller crowd, more intimate. You know what I'm saying? I would never say this on the morning jokes or at the dollhouse because it's too big. But just between me and y'all, it's a lot of people behind the scenes that I know in real life that hate me. A lot of them want me dead. They hate what I do on this channel every single day. A lot of them. And some of them are related to me, okay? And I swear to God, a lot of times I get on here and I just be like, girl, whatever. And I do still, there ain't no monkey ain't gonna stop the show. You got to know that. But it's just like every time, every so often, outside of me trying to get the dark thoughts out of my head, in my mind, I just be like, I cannot wait till the day where these people cannot touch me. They can't reach me. They can't find me. The only thing they're going to know about me is what they see on the internet. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. You have no idea. You have no idea. Let me just say this. You ever want to know who your enemies are? Heal. The quickest way to find out who your enemies are is when you heal. Because what happens is, it's kind of like the whole Black Americans versus everybody thing. Once you come into your awakening, all of the people who've been cosplaying, they got to start being who they really are, and they don't like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you ever want to know who really, truly hates you, heal. I swear to God, you'll find out like that. It won't take long at all. Just go through a healing. One healing will pull out every single enemies you didn't even know you had. Hello. At any rate, let's get back into the show though. Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Y'all get the likes up on the video. Y'all please get the likes up on the video. Miss Sip, thank you so much, Mississippi. She says, boo, we love you to the moon and back. Don't let the haters win. Pay them dust. Oh, girl, they'll never win. They know me. They know me. Nothing they do is gonna stop me. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's just something that I just want to vent to y'all about right quick. Girl, nothing they do is gonna stop me. They know me. They know me in real life. They know. That's why they doing the things that they do, you know? But anyways, back to the show. Let's get into what the Gilded Age was, y'all. I just want to, do a little 1-2. You know what I'm saying? At any rate, the Gilded Age. What is the Gilded Age? What was going on? What is the Gilded Age? Why is it important to Black America? Happy Educational Friday to everybody in the building. Let's get into the Gilded Age because this is a big deal, okay? So the Gilded Age started, I want to say, the late 1800s to the 1900s. Look at all these clears. Whenever you see history, you're going to always see a bunch of clears. Now remember, who all knows what's going on around this time, the late 1800s, the early 1900s? Drop down in the chat. Let's see if y'all be paying attention to Educational Fridays, okay? What all be going on, or what all was going on down at the doggone, what all was happening during this time? Ellis Island. Thank you, She Is Truth. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, Ellis Island. That's basically ports. All of the ports were open, and all of these immigrants are flooding in. Okay? So think about it. Late 1800s, early 1900s, that's prime time for ports. And what's going on at these ports? All of these immigrants are coming in. Angel Island on the West Coast, Ellis Island on the East Coast, okay? So they're all coming in. Now, when they come in, they need jobs. Now, I read to y'all a couple of weeks ago that Frederick Douglass even talked about cash your ballot down where, or cash your something down where you are, or something like that, and basically hire the natives. Basically, what Frederick Douglass was saying was the more they pile on more immigrants, the more we lose out on opportunities and jobs, okay? So you got all of these white folks coming in, Reconstruction is happening, all kinds of stuff is going down. You also have the Cabbage Patch Kids. Remember the orphan train? The orphan train is popping ton. So you got people coming from Europe and all other places in Africa, but they were white. They have white people coming from Europe and Africa, and there's also a doggone orphan train. So they creating babies, dropping them bitches off, and they moving people around like crazy, okay? Happy Educational Friday. Y'all get in here and get the likes up on the video. But whenever you see them write history, you'll always see them make it seem like it was just clears. That's not true. It's all a mind trick. The Gilded Age is the term used to describe the tumultuous years between the Civil War and the turn of the 20th century. The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today, was a famous satirical novel by Mark Twain set in the late 1800s and was its namesake. During this era, America became more prosperous and saw unprecedented growth in industry and technology. You know, we're kind of going through another age too, because, you know, we're coming out of the actual work age into the digital age. So we kind of like in history. Welcome to the party. You're late. Y'all, we are inside of history, which is common sense, but we're inside of the digital age. Do you know in 100 years, they're going to read about the turn of the digital age, and us millennials are going to be the main topic of discussion because we're going to be the ones who kind of double dutch in and out. Anyways, back to where I was. It says, but the Gilded Age had a more sinister side. It was a period where greedy, corrupt industrialists, bankers, and politicians enjoyed extraordinary wealth and opulence at the expense of the working class. In fact, it was wealthy tycoons, not politicians. Oh, my nail about to break. Not politicians who inconspicuously held the most political power during the Gilded Age, okay? Now, I got a video I want to show y'all about the Gilded Age. Hold on. It's a short video. But I do want to show it to y'all so we can get kind of a visual on what all was popping down at the Gilded Age, okay? Y'all get the likes up on the video. Thank you.
The Gilded Age, spanning between the Civil War and the turn of the 20th century, was a turbulent and transformative era in American history. It was a time of rapid industrialization, technological breakthroughs, and unprecedented economic growth. Cities expanded, factories roared to life, and railroads crisscrossed the nation. But beneath the glittering surface of prosperity lay stark inequalities, corruption, and significant social and political changes.
Oh, I forgot to add, this is a big piece. Railroad expansion is happening. Also, who's building the railroads? We are. How are we building the railroads? Through the convict leasing system. And y'all who don't know what the convict leasing system is, that was basically a way that the police or the government can come and snatch your ass up, swore that you committed a crime, and then sentence you to life for hard labor. Like the movie Life, Remember how they set up Claude and Ray and said that they killed that white boy? I mean, that nigga, even though they didn't, but it didn't matter. Remember at the end when he said, he stole my daddy watch. And no boy said, well, at least the state of Mississippi got a good 40 years at work out of you, whatever. It's the same thing. Life imitates art and art imitates life. So that's what's all going on. That railroad expansion is very, very important because a lot of money is exchanged. And this is also about how to be, let me slow down, boo. Slow down. This is also about to be how we're going to be in our new norm. Just like I said, we're transferring into the digital age now. Now, from then, they were transferring from the horse and buggy for the most part, not all, but for the most part, into the trains, okay?
The term Gilded Age was coined by Mark Twain and Charles Dudley Warner in their 1873 satirical novel, The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today. The word gilded refers to something covered with a thin layer of gold, giving it a shiny, attractive appearance, while concealing a less valuable or flawed core. Twain and Warner used the term to critique the era's superficial opulence and immense wealth, which they saw as masking rampant greed, political corruption, and numerous societal problems. In essence, they argued that the era glittered on the surface, but was deeply troubled underneath. Industrialization was the engine of the Gilded Age. The period saw the rise of key industries, such as steel and oil, each playing a vital role in shaping the modern economy and creating wealthy barons. The steel industry, led by Andrew Carnegie, revolutionized construction and infrastructure, enabling the creation of skyscrapers, bridges, and railroads. The oil industry, dominated by John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil, became essential for powering machinery and lighting homes. Control of such industries allowed their owners to amass incredible wealth. However, their dominance often came at the expense of fair competition and the exploitation of workers. Technological innovations fueled the industrialization and growth of the Gilded Age. Transformative inventions like Thomas Edison's light bulb and Alexander Graham Bell's telephone revolutionized life, improving communication.
Let's be clear, these crackers ain't built none of this shit. The light bulb we already had and the telephone we already had. Black people made that shit, but they wrote it down in history that these white folks did it. And I'm telling y'all, white people are not creators. They are not built to be creators. It is not even in their DNA or genetics. They cannot create. It is literally impossible. So they didn't create nothing. Everything they got, they stole that was already here. And they rewrote it in history as if they did it, but they didn't.
Education and productivity while extending working hours with reliable lighting. Advances in transportation, such as railroads, were responsible for connecting the United States together and facilitated trade, migration, and urbanization. Factories embraced mechanization and mass production, boosting efficiency and making goods more affordable. Agricultural innovations, such as mechanized farming tools and refrigeration, increased food supply and enabled national markets for perishable goods. These advancements reshape industries and transform society, creating opportunities while deepening the divide between the wealthy elite and the working class. The barons were the kings of the Gilded Age. The barons, who were often referred to as robber barons or captains.
The baron? John D. Rockefeller, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Andrew Carnegie, and J. Pierpont Morgan. So we know these guys. We know Rockefeller. He's the one created the school system. Hello. Now Carnegie, I know he owns. I only know about Carnegie. I know the hall, Carnegie Hall, and I saw that on the movie. And then we know J.P. Morgan got the bank. Hold on, you know me. I'm about to go see. I need to go see what's going on. Cornelius Vanderbilt. What did Cornelius Vanderbilt contribute to society?
Cornelius Vanderbilt transformed American society by creating a unified transportation network. He lowered travel costs and sped up the delivery of goods through railroad consolidation, contributing to modern American capitalism, although his business methods earned him a reputation.
What was Andrew Carnegie's contribution to society?
Andrew Carnegie transformed society by building the steel industry and supporting many charities. He donated over 90% of his fortune, about $350 million, to fund libraries, universities, and global peace, pioneering modern philanthropy.
Okay. So, and again, history is extremely skewed because they want you to believe that these people did all of this stuff. They didn't make nothing. They are just the faces of stuff that was already being done by us. Remember, we already created the refrigerator. We created the phone. We created the stoplight. We created everything they had. What they were doing was putting people's faces onto certain systems. Now, granted, I will say this. They are the originators of the new systems. So, yeah. Rockefeller is the originator of the new school system. Yes, J.P. Morgan is the originator of the new banking system. But these people didn't create anything. Does that make sense?
The barons, who were often referred to as robber barons or captains of industry, were powerful industrialists and financiers. Barons such as Cornelius Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, not only amassed unprecedented wealth, but wielded immense influence over the American economy and politics. Their fortunes were often built through ruthless and aggressive business practices and the formation of monopolies. And when their workers tried to unionize or strike for higher wages and safer working conditions, often the barons crushed these movements with force. The barons' luxurious lifestyles and enormous mansions symbolize their wealth and the era's opulence. Vanderbilt Biltmore Estate in North Carolina was a great example of this. Completed in 1895, the 250-room French Renaissance castle boasted 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, 65 fireplaces, grand ballrooms, priceless art, indoor swimming pool, a bowling alley, and technological marvels like electricity, a luxury at the time. The era wasn't golden for everyone. The gap between the rich and the poor widened dramatically during this period. While the upper class lived in unparalleled luxury, the majority of the population struggled with poverty and harsh living conditions.
That's what we're going to now. Remember, every age, they don't do nothing different. They wash, rinse, repeat. So remember how I told y'all, once we get really good into the digital age, that it's only going to be rich people and super poor people. We talk about it all the time. That's the same thing happened in the Gilded Age. That's about to happen right now in the doggone digital age. Now, it may not look exactly the same. Poor may not look the same, but the fact of the matter is people will be extremely limited on resources. Does that make sense?
Millions of laborers, including young children, toiled in unsafe factories, mines, and sweatshops.
There go the Cabbage Patch Kids. We already studied this. They literally sit and ship Cabbage Patch Kids all around the world for the purposes of work. They even incentivize adults, white adults in America, that if they grab a couple of these kids, that they would get incentives, okay? So here go the Cabbage Patch Kids. These the ones that they created on the farm.
Workers endured grueling hours, low wages, and hazardous working conditions. Meanwhile, the rapid growth of cities outpaced the availability of adequate housing, forcing countless families into overcrowded, dilapidated tenements. These buildings were often plagued by poor ventilation, limited access to clean water, and rampant disease, further compounding the daily struggles of urban working-class communities. During the Gilded Age, political corruption was rampant and a serious problem. Powerful political machines like New York City's Tammany Hall exemplified the era's systemic graft. These machines manipulated elections through bribery, voter fraud, and patronage, ensuring their dominance over local and state governments. At the same time, robber barons used their immense fortunes to exert influence over lawmakers. They lobbied for legislation that protected their interests, secured monopolies, and suppressed labor movements. This unchecked alliance between business and politics allowed the wealthy elite to consolidate power, often at the expense of workers' rights and democratic principles. The Gilded Age ended as more and more of Americans became frustrated with the social inequalities, corruption, and poor working conditions that defined the era. These problems led to the rise of the progressive movement in the early 1900s. The movement sought to curb the power of monopolies, improve workers' rights, and address urban living conditions, while pushing for political reforms to reduce corruption. In the end, the Gilded Age was a paradoxical era, and though it laid the foundation for the modern United States, it also reminds us of the importance of finding the proper balance between progress and fairness.
So the Gilded Age is about to be another digital age. You see how they said all of the people started getting unfair wages and how the politics got all corrupted, and then the people was literally living in the poor and they was sharing houses and all of that. You know how we talk about the Soylent Green and all of that's about to happen again. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And this is the gag. If you work a job, now I ain't gonna say if you work a job, the average person is gonna be affected, period. Black, white, green, yellow, it don't matter. The average person is going to be affected. Now, one thing I noticed about this video, and this is the truth, the most people who suffered during the Gilded Age were white people. I'm not saying black people didn't suffer, but just like Reconstruction, the most people, the mass majority or the groups of people who suffered most were white people. Why is that? Because they literally just got here. How can they come here and have their feet planted when they literally just got here? So as the America is shifting into the Gilded Age, or as we know to be the industrial age, white people are out of jobs. Remember, you told us that if we come to the new world, we'd live in paradise and we'd have our life and this, that, and the third, which the mass majority of those people would never see. However, that's what they were told. So when they got here and the Gilded Age popped off and they couldn't find jobs, black people were working, but they weren't. And they couldn't find jobs. Now you can see why civil unrest happened. Now you can see why the people started protesting. And also you can see why it would be a very, very advantageous, get me up here. Now you can see why it would be extremely advantageous to join the KKK. I mean, think about it. Put yourself in the white boy's shoes. You told me that if I hike on this boat and I get to America, that I can live in the new world. The way you set it up on the newspaper was the new world was paradise. Well, I'm here, and where's the paradise? Could you imagine if the powers that be came to them white people and said, oh, you know where the paradise at? Where? You see them niggas over there? What niggas? The ones over there who own all that land. Yeah, that's your paradise. Put yourself in the white boy's shoes. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just trying to understand and overstand the mind frame of these people. Now do you see why when the KKK would come ramishing through our neighborhoods, they was killing everything without a thought in sight? Now do you see why they were raping and killing and pillaging all of us? Because in their minds, you were the thing that stood between them and the paradise. They were told that if they got to the new world, they would get here and get to paradise, and they got here and there's none. Now they're being told out of one ear that they have a higher ranking than these black folks, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm living in poverty, and you got black people owning businesses. You got black people owning schools. What in the F? It was set up like that, just so the white people can get here and turn on us. Does that make sense? Now, they weren't calling us black then. But either way, whatever they were calling us, they literally put the divide and conquer into play. Okay. Now I want to share this video or this content. Who all was over here? Who all was coming? What all was going on? Let's get into these immigrants piling in during the Gilded Age. Then we're going to get into Black America. Y'all like the video, please. Look at all these immigrants. Look at how they look. Look at the clears. Do you see why these people would grow up and join the KKK? I do. I do. If I was one of these white boys, especially a Cabbage Patch Kid, and I can find life, and I'm an orphan, I can get rich and get a family. All I gotta do is shoot and kill some niggas. You dead. What is you on? Now you see why they hated you so much. Let's get into it.
Sometimes we take for granted the benefits of modern Western society. For example, children today have it so much better than children did 100 years ago. Children today have ample time to play. They go to parks with their parents. They play in their rooms with toys. They ride their bikes with friends and siblings. They attend school and learn all kinds of cool things. Sure, school can be challenging sometimes, and sure, they may have to clean their rooms and do a few chores here and there. But overall,
remember, our babies wasn't doing this. These are orphan babies. These are white babies from the Cabbage Patch. These ain't our babies.
Children have it pretty good. This wasn't exactly the case during the Industrial Revolution, and even afterwards for a number of decades. In the early 1900s, children frequently worked in factories. Some children as young as 5 or 6 worked. Many children worked long shifts, sometimes up to 12 hours. They worked under horrible conditions, dangerous fumes, poisonous gases and chemicals, and deadly mechanized equipment. Since we've seen and heard of so many instances where adults have been mutilated and disfigured and even killed by heavy machinery, it almost goes without saying that it wasn't uncommon in the early 20th century to see children with missing limbs. Their limbs had been lost working with factory machines. The bottom line here is that child labor wasn't pretty. Let's dig deeper and learn more about child labor in the early 1900s.
Let's
explore some
These is Cabbage Patch. These is orphan kids from the orphan train.
Context very quickly. Child labor was the direct product of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain around the 1750s and took place throughout the next 100 years or so. It spread to the United States, where it peaked over the first half of the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution was characterized by rapid advances in steam power, iron production, machine tooling, and other industrial technologies. This revolution led to the rise of large factories. Factories were eager to employ women and children because they were...
All right. So as we can see thus far, the Cabbage Patch Kids are in this bitch. You feel what I'm saying? And they're working. Remember how Reggie was saying we're working? They were working, literally, losing limbs and everything. Let's see what the other immigrants was doing.
The population growth in 4 U.S. cities from 1860 to 1900. In 1860, before the Civil War, New York City was the biggest city in the United States, but even it didn't have more than 1 million people. There wasn't a single city of more than 1 million in the whole country at that point. Compare that to just 40 years later.
That's a lie. Don't believe none. When they tell you numbers, don't believe them. Just use your discernment. That's a lie.
When not 1, but 3 cities had passed the million mark, and New York had nearly 3.5 million residents. Proportionally, Chicago's population growth was even more drastic. From only about 100,000 residents in 1860, it got 17 times bigger by 1900, with about 1.7 million residents. Traditionally, Americans had been a pretty rural, farming people. But starting in the late 19th century, there was a rapid shift towards urbanization. By 1920, urban residents would outnumber country dwellers in the United States for the first time. And today, more than 80% of Americans live in cities. So what led to this explosion in the population of cities in the decades after the Civil War? The major factors behind this shift were industrialization, immigration, and migration. Now, we've been talking about those 3 things.
Basically, they were pouring in immigrants through those ports. This is why the numbers are increasing. And it's not increasing because we only had a few people here. No. Remember, the mass majority of us are rejecting and rebelling against this new system, against this new America. So we not in it. A lot of us don't want nothing to do with it. Now, the ones they are counting are people that either are with them, meaning the Boule and the Freemasons, or some Black Americans who are progressive at the time to be on it. But at the end of the day, we, Black America, right? We're going through a whole different situation than these white folks is, because they're just pouring in here and they're pouring them in by the droves. But they want us to believe that we came from Africa. This is why they'll tell you that New York only had 100,000 people, and I'm using that number. And then after immigration, it was at 3.5 million. That's bullshit. Because the reason why they minimize the numbers so much is so that you won't know that you were already here. Remember, they want you to believe that they took your ass from Africa. That's why they said millions of African slaves. That's a lie. You were already here. Don't believe these numbers.
In various forms in American history up until this point, from the cool inventions of the First Industrial Revolution, to the influx of Irish and German immigrants in the 1840s, to the movement of Americans ever westward. So industrialization, immigration, and migration weren't new forces in American society, but there were unique aspects of all three of these processes during the Gilded Age that contributed to the development of cities in this era. One thing that changed was the nature of work that people did. During the Gilded Age, there was a tipping point in the American labor market. In 1880, for the first time ever, the number of people who worked for someone else for wages, people who had a boss and needed to do what they said to get paid, outnumbered Americans who worked for themselves, like farmers, who could decide for themselves when to sow or harvest their crops. The Second Industrial Revolution, which began after the Civil War, was a booming era of expansion and industrial production. So there were a lot of factory jobs available, and most of those jobs were for unskilled laborers. That is, workers who don't require any kind of special training before they start a job. So there was an overall transition from farm work that was self-directed to unskilled factory work done for a boss. Another change during the Gilded Age was in who was doing the immigrating and migrating. Until the 1840s, most immigrants to the United States had been Protestant Christians from Northern and Western Europe, and they were relatively well off financially. After the Civil War, a variety of factors abroad, combined with the wide availability of jobs in the United States, brought different types of immigrants to American cities. These new immigrants, as they were called, tended to be from Southern and Eastern Europe, Mexico, and Asia, and they differed from old immigrants in that they tended to be poorer, have darker complexions, and practice Catholicism or Judaism instead of Protestantism. In addition, in this era, African Americans from the South began to migrate to northern and Midwestern cities. All of these immigrants and migrants created a large industrial workforce. But why did they all move to the city? Let's take a look at some of the push and pull factors.
Black people were pushed to the cities during the so-called Great Migration. They were literally ran off of their lands by the KKK and forced up north. Other blacks were tricked out of their lands. They had people literally telling them, hey, if you come up north, we got this, that, and the third. And black people would go up there and they got tricked. On top of that, you had the black people who went up there because they were told that they had better opportunities. It was so many reasons why black people migrated to the north, and it was not mostly because we wanted to. It wasn't a great migration. It was a forced migration, okay?
That prompted people to uproot themselves and head to American cities during the Gilded Age. First, there were push factors, or things that were pushing people out of their previous living situations. A big one was poverty and just a lack of financial mobility at home. Farmers in many countries were hit hard by the mechanization of agriculture, which happened in this time period. About a third of the people moving to cities were Americans leaving farms and heading to the city for industrial jobs. Another push factor was persecution and discrimination at home. The Russian government took an increasingly intolerant position towards Jews in this time period, who were subject to mob violence and campaigns of ethnic cleansing in Europe. In the American South, the emergence of Jim Crow laws and an increase in lynchings were among the reasons that African Americans elected to leave after the Civil War. But what were the pull factors that landed them in cities? For one thing, many struggling immigrants from abroad didn't have the money to go anywhere else, so after they arrived, they just stayed put. But the main reason that people moved to cities is because that's where the jobs were. With the development of steam power and electrification, factories no longer had to be located next to waterways. So cities developed as industrial hubs. Often cities would develop as the center for one specific industry, like steel in Pittsburgh, meatpacking in Chicago, or clothing in New York. People also found communities of support in cities. Earlier immigrants might send money and information to their families and friends back home, helping them to move and get established. This facilitated the development of urban neighborhoods where people from similar backgrounds spoke the same language, ate the same food, and provided each other with assistance. In these ethnic enclaves, people could get newspapers and even go to see theater performances in their native languages.
Do you know what they're describing? The projects. They literally put these people in projects and they describing it like they gave them a nice place to live. This is crazy.
So let's finish by taking a look at two narratives of immigrants arriving in American cities in this time period. The first one is from Li Chu, who immigrated to San Francisco from China at age 16 in the year 1880. He wrote, "When I got to San Francisco, which was before the passage of the Exclusion Act, I was half-starved because I was afraid to eat the provisions of the barbarians. But a few days living in the Chinese Quarter made me happy again. A man got me work as a house servant in an American family. When I went to work for that American family, I could not speak a word of English, and I didn't know anything about housework. I did not understand what the lady said to me, but she showed me how to cook, wash, iron, sweep, dust, make beds, wash dishes, clean windows, paint and brass, polish the knives and forks, etc. In 6 months, I had learned how to do the work of our house quite well, and I was getting $5 a week in board, and putting away about $4.25 a week. I'd also learned some English. I sent money home to comfort my parents, but though I dressed well and lived well and had pleasure, going quite often to the Chinese theater and to dinner parties in Chinatown, I saved $50 in the first 6 months." The second one is from Mary Anton, who immigrated to Boston from what is now Belarus at the age of 13 in the year 1894. She wrote, "The first meal was an object lesson of much variety. My father produced several kinds of food ready to eat without any cooking, from little tin cans that had printing all over them. He attempted to introduce us to a queer, slippery kind of fruit, which he called banana, but had to give it up for the time being. On our second day, a little girl from across the alley came and offered to conduct us to school. My father was out, but we 5 between us had a few words of English by this time. We knew the word school. We understood. This child who had never seen us till yesterday, who could not pronounce our names, who was not much better dressed than we, was able to offer us the freedom of the schools of Boston. We had to visit the stores and be dressed from head to foot in American clothing. We had to learn the mysteries of the iron stove, the washboard, and the speaking tube. And above all, we had to...
Are y'all paying attention that these white people are just now coming to America and just now seeing bananas? We talked about that when we spoke about Ellis Island a couple of weeks ago. Not only that, this is their first time seeing an iron. It's their first time seeing a school. It's their first time seeing a washing room. It's their first time cooking. You heard the girl. She said her daddy had ready-to-eat food out the can. They have never done any of this. Who you think they get this from? Who do you, because all of these white folks who go on the internet and say, we built America. No. They came to an already made and ready to go America. Who do you think they got that from? Us. We were the ones who had the schools. We were the ones who had the irons. We were the ones who had the bananas. We were already here. They're just getting introduced to this luxury that we think is just regular everyday shit. But it's luxury to them. That's why the lady said, I had trouble opening this slippery fruit called a banana. We had to wear American clothes. We had to do this. We had to do that. We were already doing that. All of these white folks that are being poured into America are coming in just now learning how to do that. So when you see white folks across America talk about we, us, our, now you understand why it grinds my gears. Because I know that y'all didn't bring nothing. Y'all didn't do shit. Y'all, white people came to an America that was already built. There's nothing as far as society. There's nothing as far as infrastructure that they can say white people have built in history. Not one thing. Not one. They'll put a white man on some shit and say a white man did it, but you know one man can't build nothing. There's not one thing white folks have built in this country, just like the rest of the foreigners. They are no different from the foreigners, the Nigerians. The only difference between the white boy and the Nigerian is they were here about 100 years earlier. That's it. That's it. Let me let this thing finish.
Learn English. With our despised immigrant clothing, we shed also our impossible Hebrew names. A committee of our friends, several years ahead of us in American experience, put their heads together and concocted American names for us all. So what similarities...
Didn't I tell you they didn't get their names till they got here? Didn't I tell you that white people did not get their names till they got here? What did I say? I know what I said because I was there when I said it. I told y'all, they got us believing that we took the name of the slave master when the slave master came here and took our name. I told y'all niggas.
I told y'all niggas. I told y'all niggas. Y'all thought I was slave, but I told y'all niggas.
Let me run the lady back. How you got your name, Fefe? How you got your name?
Years ahead of us in American experience, put their heads together and concocted American names for us all.
Back up one more time. Because see, this the stuff the white boy don't want you to know.
With our despised immigrant clothing, we shed also our impossible Hebrew names. A committee of our friends, several years ahead of us in American experience, put their heads together and concocted American names for us all. So what similarities and differences do you see between the experiences of Lee Chu and Mary Anton? Why do you think they immigrated to American cities? And what do you think their lives would be like going forward in the Gilded Age?
You saw it. This is why I tell y'all to research what we talk about. Listen, the things that we were taught, this is what Educational Friday is all about. The things that we were taught was wrong. All of that shit was a lie. All of this stuff that they draw in the history books to make it seem like white people built this and we were all standing side by side building together. Them white folks came to America to an already built, ready to go. They got names when they got here. They got identities when they got here. And whatever they couldn't get, they became racist and got it off the back like that. Does that make sense? Now let's get into the black folks, because what was black people doing? I only brought up what the white people were doing because you need to know what they were doing so you can understand what was going on with us, okay? Now let's get into black Americans in the Gilded Age. Hold on. Dang, I didn't even send it. I'll get it. Let's get into black Americans in the Gilded Age. Hold on, let me pull up the right article. All right, I think this is the one. Like the video, please, if you haven't already. All right. What were black people doing during the Gilded Age? We were prospering. Y'all ever seen this video of Charlie Kirk talking about, let me see if I can find it. There's a video that people be playing of Charlie Kirk talking about how good black Americans did all the way up until the 1960s. Hold on. Even though Charlie Kirk was an idiot, he didn't lie about that. Hold on. He didn't lie about that. And let me tell you something. These white folks know the truth. They all know the truth. Look at what Name
one thing a white
not this one.
What percentage of young blacks have both a mom and a dad raising?
Not that one. It was one video where he said, and I'm not going to try to find, I think
in 1964, right before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, 75% of black youth had a dad around. Now it's 25%. So only 25%.
He talking about the dads. Listen, I can't find it. I'm not going to freak out about it, but he literally, there's a video where he basically said that black American families were doing extremely well up until the civil rights movement. And he was 1,000% right, because technically we were. Now, this is what the enemy does. The enemy got us feeling like if we agree to that, then we aren't oppressed. So what do? Oh, he's racist. Oh, he's lying. That's not true. It is true. And the only way for you to find out is through your genealogy. Now, do you see why people do their genealogy? Like, oh, boo, I found out my great-great-granddaddy, he owned this. Oh, boo, I found out my granddaddy owned that. Oh, boo, because that's where the truth lies. It's witchcraft. It's mental manipulation for you to believe that you were not successful during that time, because a lot of you were. And that's not a bad thing, because you still are owed reparations. They got to pay you back all of the stuff that they stole from your ancestors. So please, I think that's what it is too. A lot of Black Americans feel like if they admit that they didn't come from slavery, then that means that they didn't go through a struggle. And that's not the truth. You still went through a struggle, because they still literally stole everything that we had. This is why Black America don't own nothing now. So Black Americans during the Gilded Age, it says how the Black aristocracy of the Gilded Age ushered in a new era of education and freedom. Now, I be seeing there's a show, I guess, on Netflix called The Gilded Age, because I was trying to look up information on this, but I kept running into the show. And I'm pretty sure it probably, it says on HBO. I'm pretty sure it talks about a lot of this. I'd have to check it out. It says in a letter published in April 22nd, in the April 22nd, 1852 issue of Frederick Douglass Papers, he was an op. Frederick Douglass was an op, bro. Everywhere he went, calamity followed. When that nigga went to Mound Bayou, soon as he left, calamity followed. Frederick Douglass was a spy and an op. I don't give a damn. Let's move on. Someone known only by the pen name Ethiop served quite a combination of enterprising Blacks are beginning to appear. He says, quote, they begin to take their places in every pursuit about town and country. And as their thoughts and sympathies partake of their varied and independent occupations, they naturally form an active and efficient business class. I call it an aristocracy, Ethiop said. Now, are you tracking? Basically, Ethiop is down there looking at the Black Americans, and he's saying they formed their whole business class. These niggas out here successful AF. I'll give you an example of proof. Tulsa. Tulsa was built during the Gilded Age. Mound Bayou, built during the Gilded Age. Are y'all tracking? All of these cities are being built during the Gilded Age. That means Black America, and they're being built by Black Americans, not by the government. They're not being built by the government. They're not being built by white folks. We building them. So if we're building them, obviously we have the resources to do so. So they're building this stuff during the Gilded Age, which means Black America, by and large, is not poor. I'm not saying all of us was rich, and I'm not saying all of us was well-to-do. What I'm telling you is somebody lied, because they told us we were slaves. Somebody lied. How are we building whole cities and towns? Even New Orleans, downtown, doggone Claiborne, that was built. That was a whole other Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had all kinds of Black Wall Streets popping up all over America. How can that be if we were just coming out of slavery? Make it make sense. It's a lie. Okay? Back to the thing. It says the observation signaled the emergence of a new Black elite in New York City, which bloomed during the Gilded Age, a period toward the end of the 19th century marked by rapid economic growth and prosperity, as well as economic inequality. It says the HBO show The Gilded Age, which wraps up the third season August 10th, captures the clash between Manhattan's old and new money. It also gives viewers a glimpse into the world of wealthy Black Americans previously overlooked in history. Oh my God. This article is really writing it out for me. Look. The article is literally writing it out for me. Yes, we were thriving, Lady Tay. Yes, we were thriving. This is why when you do your genealogy, you found all these businesses your grandparents owned because we were thriving. Even if we didn't own businesses, we own land. That's another thing y'all gonna find out when y'all get into y'all doggone genealogy. We own not just an acre or two. No. Tens of acres, hundreds of acres, one person. We owned it. And land is where all the resources are. As long as you own land, you'll never go broke. That's why you think they got everybody so interested in cities now. That way they can control their finances. But if you own land, you'll never go broke. It's like owning a house. You know how they say you own a house, you'll never go broke? At least you could tap into the equity or you could tap into. It's the same thing with the land. Except with the land, you can grow things on your land. Lumber, you can sell the lumber from your land. You can grow food. Either way, you'll always be able to survive and thrive. So y'all are going to see this when y'all looking down this little rabbit hole through your genealogy. It says one main storyline in the Gilded Age follows Peggy Scott, played by Danae Benton, an author, journalist, and daughter of a formerly enslaved man, Arthur Scott, who is a successful pharmacist and business owner in Brooklyn. So this man is a business owner and pharmacist in Brooklyn. Her mother, Dorothy Scott, is an accomplished piano player. Well, I'll be damned. I thought we were slaves. Peggy's character was inspired by a few real-life women, including Julia C. Collins, the first Black female author to publish a novel. It says the Black elite of the Gilded Age signaled that we too have taste. We too have education. We are like other citizens. Carla Peterson, historian and author of Black Gotham, a family history of African Americans in 19th century New York City, told Business Insider. This is witchcraft. Because listen, if they write, we have this too, and we have that too, then that implies that we were lacking something. We were not. The white people are lacking. Do you hear me? The white folks coming in through them ports, them the only one. I ain't gonna say the only ones. They the ones lacking. We are not lacking. So to say Black people have taste too, that implies that it was thought that we did it. They got their taste from us, so they know we had it. Watch the hijack. Watch the witchcraft. Okay. It goes on to say, after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, the Gilded Age ushered in a Black aristocracy. It says the new class was made up of Black Americans who managed to amass wealth they'd previously been barred from. Industrialization and the railroad boomed opened up business opportunities across the U.S. Many of the Black elite were made up of the shopkeeping aristocracy who owned retail and grocery stores and pharmacies. So we own retails, grocery stores, pharmacies, etc. It says after the Civil War, there was an incredible explosion of modern industry, technology, and science, which fueled the money that makes the Gilded Age, Peterson said. Black families of wealth emerged in this context. For example, Thomas Downing became one of the wealthiest people in New York City and was known as the New York Oyster King. Look at that beautiful family. And look at my girl with her, I want to open this up. Look at my girl with her edges. Did do the baby bangs, got the VU bangs, I guess it's her bangs because she older than me. But you see how she got the edges around her on the corner right here. And she dressed to the nines, head to toe. Watch out. And she dressed to the nines. Watch out. Extremely fashionable. Look at our cousin right here behind him. Real nigga. What's up? Real nigga. Look how he got his arms folded. Real nigga. What's up? You see what I'm saying? Man, watch out. This is who we are. This is what they don't want you to see. This is why they tell you all the time through school that you were a slave. Because God forbid you see this and you'll be like, wait a minute, we was doing that. You might get the bright idea to want to do it again. So now you see why the witchcraft of the slave trade keeps get amplified at you over and over and over again, not just by the foreigners and the white folks, even by our own people. They never want you to look at this because they fear you get the bright idea to go back to it. You see what I'm saying? Man, my boy behind daddy, him, you can tell he was hell. He was hell. And his sister here, she was hell too. Them two here, you got to watch them. He probably out the way, quiet, handsome, out the way. But this one here and that one there, you got to watch them. Okay? You got to watch them. They probably was lit. These two seem like my kind of people. You feel what I'm saying? If I met the family, I know me and her be friends, and I try to make that my man. Okay? At any rate, let's get back to the show. This isn't about me. You know what I'm saying? I probably would have been saying, hey, little Thomas. Hey, little Thomas. You look cute today. Hey. What you doing? Where y'all going? Y'all about to go? Oh, okay. Tell your daddy I said, hey. Tell your sister I said, call me. Yeah, tell your sister I'm going to come around there later on. And then I'm going to tell your sister, ask your mama, can I spend a night? I won't be by your brother. That's me, hiding the ass, and would have been. Okay. I mean, this is money. Why wouldn't I? This is money. Bitch, boy. You think I wouldn't be flirting with the brother? Oh, girl, bye. This family got money. Oh, I'm in there. Oh, girl. Lil Tom is about to be my man. Stop acting crazy. I'm about to marry into this coin. Okay. And watch the next family picture with me on it. Anyway, Thomas Downing, the son of formerly enslaved parents, moved to New York City and became a savvy businessman who popularized oysters, which had been considered common food. So oysters were common. It says in 1825, he opened the upscale Thomas Downing Oyster House, a restaurant so popular that Downing was nicknamed the New Oyster King. I hate these ads. It says Downing was one of the wealthiest people in New York City at the time of his death in 1866, a millionaire in today's money, per the Virginia Pilot. It says still he was prohibited from acquiring U.S. citizenship until the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was passed, just one day before he died. Now let's get into Pierre Toussaint. I think I've heard of him. He was born into slavery in Haiti. Oh, Lord. Here go a foreigner. And I'm thinking Thomas Downing might be one, too. Was eventually freed in New York City. He became a highly sought-after hairdresser. He looked like it. Tell the truth. Don't he look like he do hair? Think about it. 1866, you walking up the street, you run across this nigga. You don't mean to tell me he don't look like he do hair? He look like he do hair to me. He look like one of them sophisticated gays who do hair. He do. And hair gonna be laid. I ain't gonna lie. He do. He look like he do hair, and that shit gonna be fine. And gossip, yup. He a hairdresser. Okay. I'm here for it. But he is Haitian, okay? He's a Haitian. It says he became a highly sought after hairdresser among the society's upper crust and used his new wealth to support orphans and immigrants, to gain education and employment. So it sounds like the government or the powers that be gave him those jobs to make this money so he can put it back into the immigrants, so he can get more immigrants over here. Get up off of here, Toussaint, with your LaPunk ass. Okay. It says women also became more independent and wealthy, such as Mary Ellen Pleasant. You know who else was popping off during this time? Madam C.J. Walker. She became a millionaire during the Gilded Age as well. Harlem Renaissance, all of this. We are lit. We ain't hurting. Not by and large. Not by and large, okay? Mary Ellen Pleasant became a self-made millionaire after she moved to San Francisco following the glimmer of the California gold rush. While she worked as domestic help, she listened to the wealthy men she served as they exchanged information on making proper investments and managing money. Sorry. Pleasant used that knowledge to buy up boarding houses, laundromats, restaurants, and Wells Fargo shares, becoming a famous figure in San Francisco in the second half of the 19th century. It says some estates by historians put her wealth around $30 million, which would be almost $1 billion in today's money. Damn. Bitch, you had it like that? She had boarding houses, laundromats, restaurants, and Wells Fargo shares. She had shares into the banking system. This lady was a billionaire during her time. I mean, it said 30 million, but it would be equivalent to a billionaire today. And this is another thing. It's extremely telling that a Black American woman has shares in Wells Fargo. I thought they wasn't working with us like that. How'd she get that? See how they be lying? My girl is a billionaire or was a billionaire during her time, okay? It says Pleasant used that knowledge to buy up boarding houses. We already read that. Let me get one more example down here. Gaining access to education was one of the ways Black New Yorkers achieved upward mobility. Look at them Black boys. Remember, we had a Negro League. It says money alone didn't grant access to the upper echelons of Black society. In addition to having character and respectability, the Black elite emphasized both education and hard work as core values, according to Peterson. It says, since Blacks came to this country, education has been number one. That's a hijack. We were already here. Peterson told Business Insiders, there is a belief that if you had ambition, you could do anything you wanted. And ambition started with education. On February 25th, 1837, Quaker philanthropist Richard Humphreys founded the first HBCU in the country. He was definitely a Freemason. The African Institute, now Cheney University in Pennsylvania. The majority of HBCUs originated from 1865 to 1900. Oh, the Freemasons was working hard. The period following the Emancipation Proclamation. Education was key to unlocking the skills to become a doctor or a pharmacist, and also led to the flourishing of interest in humanities and the arts, according to Peterson. Scholars like your boy Webb, W.E.B. Du Bois, advocated for the need for an educational class. Why did he do that? Why would W.E.B. Du Bois advocate for the need of an educational class? Well, had he not done that, we wouldn't have the ski-wees, right? If W.E.B. Du Bois did not advocate for an educational class, we wouldn't see none of the ski-wees or the shoulder shimmies or the and we know that that's not why they're there, even though it looks like that's why they're there. That's not why they're there. The Divine Nine organization, I told y'all, are the gatekeepers between us and success. So in order for them to create the Divine Nine, W.E.B. Du Bois have to come in and advocate for what? Education. He's going to create a whole new group of Black Americans that are going to be the go-betweens, or not the go-betweens, the gatekeepers between us and the powers that be. You see what I'm saying? So that's why Webb is advocating for an educated class. It says the Negro race, like all races, is going to be saved by its exceptional men. If you only knew. Du Bois wrote in the essay, The Talented 10th. Those are the people that I'm telling y'all were literally created by these people to keep us from getting up there, okay? I want to show you this article. Hold on. I ain't signing in a thing. Let's go to this article. African Americans in the Gilded Age, not these Africans we see, talking about us. Okay, it says constitutional amendments were ratified during and after the Civil War to protect the natural and civil rights of African Americans. Despite these local protections, the conditions of African Americans significantly worsened in the last few decades of the 19th century. In the late 19th century, the promise of emancipation and Reconstruction were largely unfulfilled and was even reversed in the lives of African Americans. Now, before we move on, I'm already seeing the trajectory of this article. Now, remember, the Boule and the Freemasons are behind this. This is about spiritual warfare. On one hand, you can find an article speaking about how great Black America did as far as business and all that stuff. But it seems like this article is going to go more into how bad we were doing. Now, again, both things are true. There were Black Americans that were doing bad, and there were Black Americans that were doing extremely well. I don't want to not add that in because those things are true. But you got to understand how witchcraft works. In order for you to not have an outlook or at least a look on your future and look at it like as if you can do better, they have to make you seem like your past was worse than what it was. So let me rephrase that. In order for you to not have a great future, you have to believe that your past was just as bad as your present. So how do they do that? Witchcraft, his story. That's why they put all of these articles, put all throughout the schools that we were doing so bad. Because God forbid we realize we weren't, we try to do better, okay? So you got articles that are going to say we were doing good, and you're going to find articles and books that are going to say we did bad. You got to know why the ones that say we did bad are written. They're written to keep us up on the witchcraft, to keep us confused, okay? It says, in the late 19th century, the promise of emancipation and Reconstruction went largely unfulfilled and was even reversed in the lives of African Americans. Southern Blacks suffered from horrific violence, political disenfranchisement, economic discrimination, and legal segregation. Ironically, the new wave of racial discrimination that was introduced was part of an attempt to bring harmony between the races and order to American society. Hold on, let me scroll down. This a whole paper. Oh, I think we got to click on one of these things. What's the one I wanted to? We already know I to B. Let's pull up this. D. John Hope. We are struggling for equality, 1896 excerpts. So I guess they have some excerpts. Let's get into it. It says in 1896, John Hope was a professor of classics. Hold on. Who is John Hope in history? John Hope was a prominent... Look. Don't they all look like that? He was a prominent African American. Don't they all look like that? Mulatto Trojan horse. You see that mulatto Trojan horse? Got just enough black in him to say he black, but he really not. Mulatto Trojan horse. Sorry. He was a prominent African American educator, college president, and civil rights activist. Born in Augusta, Georgia, he became the first black president of Morehouse College. This the Boule people. That's the Boule. That's who that is. That's the Boule. So he's writing this article. So you already know it's going to be a lot of hijacks. Oh, Lord, let's get into it. John Hope was a professor of classics and science at Roger Williams University in Nashville, Tennessee. He heard Booker T. Washington's speech, another op, advising accommodation, and was convinced that Washington's counsel did not go far enough to stand up for equality. Hope made the speech below to a black debating society. He later became one of the founders of the Niagara Movement and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. In 1906, Hope became the first black president of Atlanta Baptist College. Now listen, remember, they're doing stage work. America, the world is a stage. So they're setting up plays to make us believe that we're going back and forth. So you got Freemasons and Boule people who are literally in theater against each other for the masses. What do I mean by that? You got W.E.B. Du Bois acting like he's beefing with his op, and his op and him is really on the same team. Does that make sense? Or you got Frederick Douglass beefing with his political op, but really they on the same team. They just acting it out to you, so you think that there's really a side to pick. It says, if we're not striving for equality in heaven's name, for what are we living? I regard it as cowardly and dishonest for any of our colored men to tell white people that we are not struggling for equality. You see that hijack? You see that witchcraft? If money, education, and honesty will bring this to me or will not bring to me as much privilege and as much quality or equality as they bring to any American citizen, then they are not, or they are to me a curse and not a blessing. God forbid that we should get the implements with which to fashion our freedom and then to be too lazy or pusillanimous, I don't know what that word is, to fashion. It says, let us not fool ourselves nor be fooled by others. If we cannot do what other free men do, then we are not free. Yes, my friends, I want equality, nothing less. I want all that my God-given powers will enable me to get. Then why not equality? Now catch your breath, for I'm going to use an adjective. I'm going to say we demand social equality in this republic. We shall be less than free men. If we have a whit less than that which thrift, if we have a whit less than that which thrift, education and honor afford other free men. It says if equality, if equality, political, economic, and social, the boon of other men in this great country of ours, then equality, political, economic, and social is what we demand. We build a wall to keep me out, or why build a wall to keep me out? I am no wild beast, nor am I unclean or an unclean thing. I don't believe that any of this stuff is happening during this time. I believe John Hope is writing this as if it's happening, but I don't think this is happening. I think that this is only written to make it seem like it was happening so that we buy into it. I believe the people during the time probably read it and was thinking to themselves, like, I don't remember all of this. What is this? But it don't matter. They wrote it for then so that we find it today. I got a better article for y'all. Because see, John Hope wants us to believe that we was all jacked up, right? John Hope wants us to believe we was all jacked up. Hold on. I hope they don't make me buy this article because I'm not about to. I ain't even gonna hold you. Ain't about to buy it. Ain't about to buy it. Is it gonna scroll down for me? Oh, I think it's gonna make me buy the article. No, hold on, back up. Nope. Damn it. Yeah, this article gonna make me buy it. Hold on, let me go grab another article. I didn't know it was gonna make me purchase it. Give me 1 second, y'all. I didn't think that article was gonna make me buy it. Where is that article I have? Oh, here you go. Here you go. Sorry about that, y'all. I didn't think that article was going to make me buy it. All right. Banking, finance, insurance. Let's get into what Black America had going on. African Americans established their own banks and insurance companies in response to discriminatory practices and the need to serve their communities. Are y'all catching that? It says Black owned and Black customer service oriented banks and insurance companies were formed out of the exclusion, no, it wasn't, of African Americans from these systems and provided a source of credit, economic development, jobs, and training opportunities for their communities. Now, let me say this. Two things are happening. Number one, we are recreating and rebranding, but also the Gilded Age is happening. So even though we were already here, even though a lot of us were already successful, now we have to transfer into this new age. Think about it like this. Y'all remember how it was the first time during COVID, Remember during quarantine and when everybody started realizing we could work from home? Put a 3 in the chat when you realized that it was more convenient for us to work home. It's kind of like that. When we started realizing during COVID that holy shit, not only can we be more productive, we can also still make the same amount of money if we work from home. That's the same type of situation was happening then. They were literally reconstructing the way things were going. So Black America during this time, we're shifting over from one way of living into a new way of living. The same way we did when we started learning we could work from home. We shifted from getting up every morning, feeling like we have to go out the door, to now we know that we don't. Some of us, a lot of us, can literally work from home. That's the kind of same situation. We're shifting. We're shifting with the times. And as we're shifting, we're still being uber successful. We're opening banks, insurance companies, schools. We're still doing all of this, okay? We're not being taken down. It says, let's get back into it. This section examines the African American banking and insurance industries and provides information on individuals who were able to succeed in finance despite racial barriers. The Freedmen Bank, was established in 1865 to allow newly freed slaves in the South to build assets, but ended with bank failure due to speculation and fraud committed by the white managers of the bank. That was the setup. We talked about that. The bank failure created financial loss to its customers and a loss of trust in the banking system. Its record provides a valuable source of genealogical and economic research. Didn't I tell y'all that y'all need to start looking at them Freedmen banks and them Freedmen bureaus and shit? That's a lot of genealogy in that stuff. A lot of our people enrolled as freedmen. Okay? I'm pretty sure my great granddaddy did too. Now that I'm thinking about it, I need to go look at that. Because my great great granddaddy, he came out of slavery and bought 300 acres of land in Mississippi. We still own it in 2026. Right now. I have a family graveyard out there right now. I'm pretty sure that my great granddaddy was amongst these people who came out of slavery and still was able to survive. You know why my great granddaddy was able to do that? Because he had skills that the white boy didn't have. So when we came up out of slavery, he was able to go get jobs that the white boy couldn't get. Not only that, when he was in slavery, the slave master, according to what my great aunt tells me, that the slave master allowed him to work and make his own money. So my great great granddaddy was one of the real ones. You see what I'm saying? And when slavery ended, he basically went to work and then he went bought 300 acres of land. Okay? So a lot of us were able to come up out of slavery, right? A lot of us were able to come up out of this bad situation and still be uber successful. A lot of Black Americans, not just my granddaddy or great great granddaddy, a lot of y'all's too. Okay? So the Freedmen Bank, we know, was put in place to screw us over. They stole our money, ran off on the plug, right? But we were creating our own banks. It says the bank failure created financial loss to its customers and a loss of trust in the banking system. Its record provides a valuable source of genealogical and economic research. Between 1888 and 1934, 134 Black-owned banks were formed. Pause. I thought we ain't had nothing. I know one of them is still open in Houston right now. I think it's downtown 4th Ward. So over 134 Black-owned banks were formed, but only 9 survived the Depression. While there was growth in banks throughout the 1970s to a total of 50 banks, only 27 survived the savings and loans crisis of the 1980s. So every time we build, they come up with a new crisis. The insurance industry discriminated against African Americans in response to the 1896 study, Race, Trace, and Tendencies of the American Negro, which used statistics and eugenics to argue that Negroes were more prone to disease, which was a lie. It was them. African American insurance companies grew because people of color found purchasing insurance to be difficult or unaffordable due to bias. Let me tell you what really happened. We already had our own insurance companies and we were already insuring our own people. They always write it as if we have to come from behind. That's a psychological trick. A lot of times we didn't come from behind. Most of the time it was them coming from behind. Remember, they the ones coming in. Why would we be having to come from behind? It doesn't make common sense for us to be the ones coming from behind when they are the ones coming off these orphan trains. They are the ones coming off these doggone boats. They are the ones coming in with no skills, no name, no labor, no nothing. Not us, them. Okay? Let me get into this video. My bad. Let me pull up a video to show y'all. Let me see. Y'all get the likes up on the video.
H1RD. There's a particular kind of erasure that happens to success stories that don't fit the narrative. Not violent suppression, not dramatic censorship, just quiet omission. The simple act of looking away until entire communities, entire histories disappear from collective memory. In 1892, while Caroline Astor was hosting her famous ball for the 400 at her mansion on Fifth Avenue, determining who mattered in New York society, another event was taking place less than 3 miles away that nobody talks about. At the spacious home of Dr. Philip A. White on Dean Street in Brooklyn, 150 of New York's Black elite gathered for what they called the Ugliest Man Ball, a charity fundraiser where the attendee voted ugliest would donate the most to community causes. It was sophisticated, exclusive, and organized by people whose wealth would have qualified them for Caroline Astor's list if skin color hadn't been the ultimate disqualification. Before we expose the hidden history that changes everything you think you know about the Gilded Age, hit that subscribe button right now, because what we're about to reveal is the story they deliberately left out of every history book, every documentary, every old money aesthetic video you've ever seen. Turn on notifications because we're about to introduce you to a world of Black millionaires, exclusive social clubs, and inherited wealth that existed while Jim Crow tried to pretend it didn't. Drop a comment telling us why you think this history was erased, and share this video because the invisible dynasty needs to become visible. Subscribe now because understanding that Black wealth and Black high society thrived during America's most racist era changes how we see everything. This is the story of the Black 400, the wealthy African American families who built fortunes, established exclusive social networks, created their own version of high society, while white America pretended they didn't exist. This is the story of families like the Marshall.
We know this is not true because white people were just coming in. See how they try to listen, understand what I'm trying to tell you. It's all psychological warfare. They frame things like Black America was always trying to survive. They frame things like Black America was just trying to be up with the white people. You notice when they speak about us in history, even in our successes, they can't never say we was just successful. They always say something had to happen and then we had to be successful. Oh, we were discriminated against, so we created our own movies. Or oh, it's always like that because it's psychological warfare. Y'all ever pay attention to my intro when the white boys say, this one here is the Indian, and you cannot put them under certain restraints like the other ones. They will not eat, they will not talk, they will not make love. This is why they had to put us under psychological slavery. Because see, in Africa, they can just go over there and whip them and make them slaves. Not us. They had to literally give us a Jedi mind trick. And it's continuing over and over and over. So every time we do something or they're celebrating us, it's always a story of us coming from behind. That's not true. These white folks are just coming in. We already established our wealth. We already established who we are. It's them trying to keep up with us. But it's a trick. It's a reverse psychology trick. If you believe that they were here and they were already successful and you were trying to be successful like them, you will always be playing from behind the power curve. That's the psychological warfare. That's the doggone spiritual warfare that we're dealing with.
Whose catering empire served to the white elite while accumulating more wealth than most of their clients. The Downses, who owned more Brooklyn real estate than many white developers. The Nails, whose funeral business made them indispensable to both Black and white New York. This is the story of how parallel societies existed in the same city, occupying the same streets, sometimes even the same buildings, but operating in completely separate social universes. And this is the story of how that Black elite has been systematically erased from popular history. How the Gilded Age narrative became exclusively white by design. And how recovering this history changes our understanding of American wealth, power, and possibility. The term Black 400 was coined in 1888 by the New York Age, the city's leading black newspaper. In direct response to Caroline Astor's White 400, the editor, T. Thomas Fortune, wrote, "While Mrs. Astor counts her 400 in her ballroom, there are easily 400 colored families in Brooklyn and Manhattan whose wealth, refinement, and social graces would put many of her chosen to shame. The difference is that our 400 built their fortunes despite every obstacle American racism could devise, while hers merely inherited from men who were often their moral inferiors." Fortune proceeded to publish names, addresses, occupations, and estimated wealth of New York's black elite, creating a parallel social register that documented a community that white society refused to acknowledge. The list included physicians, earning $10,000 annually, roughly $300,000 today. In an era when the average American earned $400, it included real estate investors who owned multiple properties in Brooklyn's most desirable neighborhoods, caterers whose businesses grossed $50,000 annually, undertakers whose funeral homes were marble palaces. It included families who sent their children to private schools, who traveled to Europe, who spoke French and German, who collected art, who hosted elaborate dinner parties, who lived lives that looked remarkably like the white elite 3 miles north, except nobody wanted to talk about them. The white press ignored them completely. When wealthy black New Yorkers appeared in white newspapers at all, it was as servants, as problems, as criminals, never as successful business people or cultured society leaders. And even
that's psychological warfare, because if you believe that you're criminals and all of this stuff, you won't never be excellent. Why do you think they put that in the doggone newspapers? Also, see all these people with these hands? Look at all these Freemasons. You see all these Freemasons? You see all them hands crossed like that? I told y'all they do this and they do that. They love crossing that thumb over that thumb. I keep telling y'all, bruh, this shit is sick. It's weird, but it's a lot of real messed up stuff going on. And I figured it out. The reason why you always see celebrities and all that shit do that, it's a hand signal to each other that this is a whole play. It's a hand signal to each other that me and you on the same page, but the world is not. That's all this shit is. It's a hand signal to each other. I'm on your side. Even though it looks like I'm on the people's side, I'm one of y'all. That's what that shit is. I done figured it out. I kept saying why they keep doing these hand signals. Even on the news, even at the school, they always doing these hand signals. It's a hand signal to each other that they're on the same team. We remember, it's a small team against the world. So all of these people you be seeing doing all of this and all of that, all of them people on the same team.
today, when we romanticize the Gilded Age, when we watch Downton Abbey and create old money aesthetic content, when we study the Astors and Vanderbilts, the Black 400 remain invisible. This invisibility is not accidental. It serves a purpose, because acknowledging that Black wealth and Black sophistication existed during Jim Crow complicates the narrative. It makes it harder to justify racism if you have to admit that Black people, given even the smallest opportunity, built the same kind of success that whites claimed was evidence of inherent superiority. It's easier to erase them than to explain them, but they existed, they thrived, and their story is as much a part of the Gilded Age as Caroline Astor's ballroom. Chapter 2. The Marshall EMPI Ryther Marshall family story begins in 1838, when Robert Reed Marshall arrived in New York from Virginia. He was born free in 1808, the son of a white plantation owner and an enslaved woman who had purchased her own. Freedom Robert had one skill that
Mulatto Trojan horse, mulatto Trojan horse. He got the black mom and the white daddy. Mulatto Trojan horse. He ain't to be trusted. Mulatto Trojan horse.
Build a dynasty. He could cook, not home cooking, but elaborate French cuisine, the kind served at diplomatic dinners and society events. He arrived in New York with $3. By 1840, he was working as a chef for one of the city's wealthiest families, the Schermerhorns. Yes, the same family that Caroline Astor was born into. Robert Marshall spent 2 years learning not just cooking, but observation. How the wealthy operated, what they valued, how they signaled status through food and entertainment. In 1840,
I'm starting to think that a lot of Black Americans were already rich. So I think they started manufacturing rich people in the Freemasons' boulets. So what do I mean by that? Because two things are happening. There's regular Black people who are not boulé, who are not talented tenth, who are really outside getting the bag. I believe that the Freemasons and the Boule created a system, or at least something, to where they create rich black people. They're going to write their histories and swear to God they were slaves and then they made it out the mud and da-da-da-da. Bullshit. They created these rich people to infiltrate the rich black people that were already there. I believe that.
2. He opened Marshall's Catering at 64 West 3rd Street. It was a small operation initially, providing meals for middle-class events. But Robert had ambitions. He understood something crucial. The New York elite were in constant competition, trying to outdo each other with increasingly elaborate entertaining, and they needed someone who could provide European-level cuisine and service. Robert positioned himself as that someone. He studied French culinary techniques obsessively. He trained his staff in formal European service. He created menus that mimicked what wealthy New Yorkers had experienced in Paris. By 1850, Marshall's Catering was the preferred provider for elite events. When the Astors hosted dinners, Marshall catered them. When the Belmonts threw balls, Marshall provided the food and service. The irony was exquisite. The white elite who wouldn't socialize with black people, even of their own class, were entirely dependent on a black-owned business for the events that defined their social status. Robert Marshall accumulated wealth rapidly. By 1855, he was worth an estimated $50,000, roughly $1.5 million today. He invested in
this. The reason why, you heard that? White people were solely dependent on black business. Now you see why we don't own businesses no more? Now you see why it's so hard for us to own businesses now? Now do you see why we have to outsource everything? Because at one point, in order for them to have the finer things, they had to come to us. Because who was in charge of the finer things? The people who were already here. So if they wanted to have these balls and shit, and they wanted to have the best of the best, they had to come to the niggas. And you know what the powers that be said? Oh, hell no. We're not about to put them in no positions of power like that. So slowly but surely, according to the civil rights movement, they started taking our wealth away slowly but surely, taking away our land, taking away our jobs, taking away our education, burning down our businesses, using the KKK. You see what I'm saying?
real estate. Purchasing properties in Greenwich Village in Brooklyn, he bought rental buildings that generated steady income. When Robert Marshall died in 1865, he left an estate worth over $100,000 to his sons, Albert and George. The brothers expanded the business dramatically. By 1870, Marshall's Catering employed over 200 people during the social season. They had a commissary kitchen that could produce meals for 1,000 guests. They catered the most important social events in New York. The Bradley Martin Ball of 1897, where guests wore costumes costing thousands of dollars, was catered by Marshall's. The Vanderbilt housewarming at their Fifth Avenue chateau. Marshall's, the wedding of Consuelo Vanderbilt to the Duke of Marlborough. Yes, Marshall's catered. That too. Think about that for a moment. The same family that Consuelo Vanderbilt couldn't legally marry in many states, due to anti-miscegenation laws, was trusted to cater her wedding to European aristocracy. The Marshall brothers understood the contradictions perfectly. They were welcome in the kitchens of Fifth Avenue mansions, but not in the parlors. They could prepare food for the 400, but couldn't be among them. So they created their own version. Albert Marshall's home at 151 Duffield Street in Brooklyn was a 3-story brownstone that cost $15,000. Roughly $450,000 today, comparable to upper-middle-class homes in white neighborhoods. The interior featured imported furniture, oil paintings, a library with over 1,000 volumes. Albert spoke French fluently. His children were educated. At private schools, the Marshalls hosted their own elaborate dinner parties, not for white clients, but for Black Brooklyn's elite physicians, lawyers, successful business people, clergy, educators. These gatherings were just as formal, just as elaborate as anything happening on Fifth Avenue, multi-course French meals, string quartets, guests in evening dress. The difference was that nobody in white society knew or cared that they were happening. George Marshall married Elizabeth Gloucester, daughter of the prominent Black clergyman John Gloucester, connecting the Marshall fortune to another established Black family. The marriage in 1871 was covered extensively in the Black press. The New York Globe described it as the social event of the season, uniting two of our community's most distinguished families. The white press didn't mention it at all. By 1890, the Marshall family businesses were grossing over $100,000 annually, roughly $3 million today. They owned real estate worth an estimated $200,000. The combined Marshall family wealth was probably around $300,000, roughly $9 million today. This wasn't Vanderbilt money, but it was significant wealth. It was more than most white families had. It was old money by any reasonable standard. The business was in its third generation. Yet if you read histories of Gilded Age New York, if you study that era's society and culture, you will never encounter the Marshall name. They've been completely erased, and they're not unique. Chapter
I'm about
3.
to say, so if they erased the Marshalls, then who else did they erase? They erased damn near all of us. This is why all we get taught about our history is the bad shit, the slavery, the Jim Crow. We never get taught about this stuff. Because if you get taught about it, you might get the bright idea to redo it again. You see why they do this? This is crazy, bro.
The Brooklyn Elite, Brooklyn in the late 19th century was home to the largest concentration of wealthy black families in
She
American
a plant. I don't want to hear about her. She a plant.
society. A group of educated black professionals who met monthly to discuss literature, politics, and social issues. Members included Dr. Philip A. White, whose home we mentioned earlier. He was worth an estimated $35,000, roughly $1 million today. His medical practice treated both black and white patients. Dr. Sarah Garnett, the first black female principal in New York City's public school system, she owned her home in Brooklyn outright, worth $12,000. Maricha Redmond Lyons, writer and educator. Her family owned real estate and operated a successful pharmacy. These weren't isolated success stories. They were a community, an entire social class that had built wealth despite systematic exclusion from most economic opportunities. The National Negro Business League conducted a survey in 1900 that documented over 400 black-owned businesses in Brooklyn alone. These included restaurants, tailors, grocers, coal dealers, contractors, physicians' practices, legal offices, real estate agencies. The combined annual revenue of Brooklyn's black
I just got a random. Hold on. How many black businesses were thriving in New Orleans in the early 1900s? There's no single exact total of official census numbers for how many black-owned businesses were thriving in New Orleans in the early 1900s. Of course, they wiped them out. It says historical records from that era did not compile a comprehensive, permanent, citywide count. Through regional business directors from the period, such as Wood's Directory published between 1912 and 1914, documented a vibrant and diverse network of African Americans enterprise. So they saying that it was a documented a vibrant and diverse network of African American enterprises, but they won't say. Hold on, I'm trying to do an experiment. How many thriving black businesses were in Atlanta in the early 1900s? In the late 1890s and early 1900s, pioneering studies like W.E.B. Du Bois in 1899 report, The Negro Business documented 61 black-owned businesses operating in Atlanta. As the decade progressed, this number nearly doubled by 1910, eventually expanding to a thriving commercial district of over 140 businesses. Hold on. How many thriving black businesses were popping in Atlanta? No, not Atlanta. How many thriving black businesses were there in Miami in the early 1900s? No exact total number. They must have scrubbed y'all too. It says no exact total number of thriving black businesses in Miami during the early 1900s recorded in historical data. Early city directories from 1904 onward document a growing presence of black-owned general goods, services, and professionals in the neighborhoods known as the colored towns, now historic Overtown. But historians have not provided a definite overall count for that decade, obviously. Let's do Chicago. How many thriving black-owned businesses were there in Chicago in the early 1900s? At the dawn of the 20th century in the 1900s, Chicago's black population was about 30,050. It says supporting a modest but growing network of small businesses and professionals. As the Great Migration accelerated over the next few decades, this number exploded into thousands of thriving enterprises anchored in the South Side's Bronzeville district, known as the Black Metropolis, reaching over 2,600 black-owned businesses by the 1930s. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. See, the reason why I brought that up is because we were thriving all over America. New Orleans, Chicago, New York, Miami, Tulsa. We was thriving everywhere. But history likes to hide that. So they give us onesie twosies. We know about Tulsa. I'm pretty sure if we pull up Tulsa, they're going to tell us all the businesses. And of course, they give us New York. But they give us the onesie twosies so that we can know that at least some of us were doing something, but at least for us to feel that the mass majority of us were slaves. But the fact of the matter is that's not true. We were thriving in every major city in America because we were already doing that before they got here. And when they came and did this whole Gilded Age and shifted into a new paradigm, we had a little shake back, but we shook back in. We shook back anyway. We were still able to be successful. You see what I'm saying? So you got to take this stuff for a grain of salt when you're using Google, number one, and even his story, because his story is written to make them look one way and us look another. And it's just not the truth. So please do not take this, because I'm pretty sure St. Louis will have thriving Black businesses and all these other places where Black Americans live. The reason being is because they were just getting here. Keep this in mind. White people in droves did not start coming to America until the late 1800s, early 1900s. Prior to that, the mass majority of the people in America were Black, copper color, indigenous, African American, foundational Black American, whatever. Prior to that, the mass majority of people here were us. So if there were businesses, who do you think owned them? Us. You see what I'm saying? Let's get back into the video.
Businesses exceeded $2 million, roughly $60 million today. This was a substantial economy, operating largely invisibly to white New York. The social institutions of Black Brooklyn were elaborate and exclusive. The Carlton Avenue branch of the YMCA, opened in 1892, was funded entirely by Black donors. The building cost $20,000. It featured a gymnasium, swimming pool, library, and meeting rooms. Membership was selective. You needed references from existing members. You needed to demonstrate financial stability and moral character. It was deliberately exclusive, not based on skin color, obviously, but based on class, education, and social standing. The exact same criteria Caroline Astor used for her 400, the Brooklyn Howard Colored Orphan Asylum, founded in 1866, was governed by a board of wealthy Black Brooklynites. Board members
We talked about Ida B. Wells recently. We saw how she got her money. She got her money from her daddy. Let's talk about it. Ida B. Wells got her money from her daddy. Let's move on.
Roughly 150 today. Deliberately pricing out working class families, this wasn't cruelty. The Black social clubs were as exclusive as anything on Fifth Avenue. The Ugly Club, founded in Brooklyn in 1885, was supposedly about charitable fundraising, but it was really about social networking. Among successful Black men, membership required nomination by 2 existing members, approval by the board, and annual dues of $25, roughly $750 today. Meetings were held monthly at members' homes. Rotating between the most impressive residences, the ugly theme was ironic humor. Members would compete to be voted ugliest, with the winner making the largest charitable donation. But the real function was creating space for Black businessmen to make deals, form partnerships, discuss politics. It was the Black equivalent of the Union Club or the Metropolitan Club, where white elites networked. The Eureka Club in Manhattan, founded in 1890, was even more exclusive. Only professional men were eligible. Physicians, lawyers, successful businessmen, clergy with advanced degrees. The initiation fee was $50. Monthly dues were $5. The club maintained rooms at 235 West 53rd Street, with a library, reading room, billiard room. Members included Dr. Philip A. White, John E. Nail, T. Thomas Fortune, Charles W. Anderson, who would become the first Black supervisor of revenue for New York. These men were building political and economic power through social networking, exactly like their white counterparts. The social season for Black New York was as structured and elaborate as the white season. The Brooklyn Howard Ball in January, the Ugly Club Ball in February, the Eureka Club reception in March, the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, founded in 1906 at Cornell, held its New York chapter's annual dance in May. The New York Age published society pages covering these events, describing who attended, what they wore, who was notable. Exactly like white society pages. One description from 1895 reads, Mrs. Albert Marshall received guests in a gown of ivory silk with Belgian lace. Her diamonds were magnificent. The Downs family arrived fashionably late. Miss Susan Downs was stunning in emerald velvet. Dr. White and his wife were accompanied by the distinguished Mr. T. Thomas Fortune. These descriptions mirror white society coverage exactly, the same obsession with fashion.
So this is how they recruited for A5A then. So Black America were already having its balls or its galas or whatever it was. When they created A5A in 1906, of course, the next thing to do is have a ball because you want to make it seem like this is some elite shit. You want to seem like you're amongst the who's who's. So it sounds like the Boule created the A5A, that's the first fraternity, and then they created a ball during a time where balls was popping, during a time where anybody who was anybody was having a ball, literally. You know what I'm saying? So it sounds like the A5A started creating balls just so they can get in and so they can get known by the Black Americans. I'm just saying.
Name dropping. The same performance of refined consumption. The Black elite even had their own version of Newport, Highland Beach, Maryland. Founded in 1893 by Charles Remond Douglas, son of Frederick Douglass. It was created specifically as a summer retreat for wealthy Black families after Douglass was refused. Service at a whites-only resort. Families built summer homes. Modest compared to...
We already owned the beaches. We already owned Martha's Vineyard. We owned the beaches. They lying, bruh. Frederick Douglass was an op, though. But they say his son created a beach because his daddy was discriminated. Man, watch out. Them people lying, bruh.
Newport's cottages, but substantial, typically costing $5,000 to $10,000. The Highland Beach community was deliberately exclusive. Property could only be sold to people approved by the Homeowners Association. Approval required letters of reference, financial documentation, essentially proof that you were part of the Black elite. By 1900, Highland Beach had 40 properties owned by Black families from New York, Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore. They would summer there hosting beach parties, sailing, playing tennis, doing everything the white elite did at Newport, completely separate, completely invisible to white America. The educational infrastructure was equally parallel because most white private schools wouldn't accept Black students. Wealthy Black families created alternatives. The Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia, the M Street School in Washington, these were academically rigorous institutions that prepared students for college. Tuition at these schools was substantial, $50 to $100 per year. Roughly $1,500 to $3,000 today. Only wealthy families could afford it, which was the point. These schools created networks among the Black elite. Students at M Street included the children of the most prominent Black families. They socialized together, formed friendships that would last for life. Eventually married each other. It was social reproduction. The same process of maintaining class boundaries across generations.
So how they said they eventually married each other, it was social reproduction. Remember a couple of days ago on the Morning Joes, we was talking about generational wealth. And I said, when we have kids, you can't just pass the wealth down just because that's your kid. Because your kid and who they marry is extremely important. Because if your kid marry an idiot, all your generational wealth goes down the tubes. Okay, it's the same thing here. They were literally having families together where they would grow up around each other and say, my baby's going to marry your son. I'm going to have a daughter, or if I have a daughter and I see this wealthy family got a son, I come from money, that family come from money, so good. My daughter going to marry your son. And it's understood. And you let the daughter know, look, when you about 16, 17, you going to marry him. This going to be your husband. So get to know him. How old he is, how y'all is, 10, 11, 12. Have fun, get to know each other. This gonna be your husband. And back then the kids were like, okay, because we didn't marry for love. You fell in love later. You married to carry on the generational wealth
that the white elite practiced. The result was that by 1900, you could be born into the Black elite, educated in elite Black institutions, socialize exclusively with other elite Black families, marry within that circle, and pass on wealth and status to your children, an entire parallel society, functioning according to the same rules as white society, just invisible to it. Chapter 6. The ERACORE, the systematic...
I'm going to stop it right there, though, and I'll leave the link for y'all if y'all want to go watch it yourselves. I wanted to get back on that Black family. Let me see. Where that Black family at? That's what I wanted to put it on. Listen, this is the point, though. I'm saying all that to say this. Listen, oh, dang, where is that? It's on there, but I can't see it. I'll leave it there. Listen, this is the point. We Black America have been told a lie. It's a big psychological warfare that we're dealing with here. Because that's why everything we are taught about us in our history, they always make it seem like we coming from the bottom. They always make it seem like we were discriminated against first, and then we had to go create. Or we had this happen to us first, then we had to go. Or the white people had it first, and then we created the black one. That's psychological warfare. These white folks ain't come here and create a fuck thing. They're not creators. It's not even in their genetics and DNA to create. They didn't come here and create shit. These Freemasons and these Boule people, that they came in right at the opportune time. You got the Gilded Age popping off in the late 1800s. And what are they doing around this time? They are forming your doggone Boule people. W.E.B. Du Bois, all of these people, they're forming the talented 10th. These people are going to come in and help us really go over this stuff through the witchcraft. They're going to help perpetuate the mindset of the one coming from behind. This is why we're taught the Black history. This is why we're taught the Martin Luther King of it all. And guess who's behind it? The same talented 10. They're here to trick your mind into believing that you're subservient to these people so that you won't ever rise up, so that you won't ever create, and you won't ever be as great as you really are. The fact of the matter is this. When the white folks came in here in the 1800s and the 1900s, they had to come to us for everything, for work, for business, for everything, because they had nothing. They had no names. They had no culture. They had no language. They came here and got all of that when they got here. All of the things you've been taught in school and things on TikTok that you see about how white people did this first and then black people came behind them. Look at it today. We don't go behind white folks doing shit. So why would we do it then? Why would we don't look at white people in 2026 and then say, let me recreate? So why would we do that then? It doesn't make common sense. We are creatures of habit. Whatever we're doing today, we did 100 years ago, 1,000 years before that, and 1,000 years before that. We've never changed. A leopard don't change his spots, and a tiger can't change his stripes. We are never changed. We've been the same since we got here. And if we didn't look to them today, we damn sure didn't look to them in the past. So all of this written witchcraft of Black Americans having to come rise from the phoenix or rise from the ashes like a phoenix, that's all political and psychological warfare done and brought to us by the talented 10th and the Freemasons. The fact of the matter is this, just like Reconstruction, the white folks were the ones struggling during the Gilded Age, not us. By and large, we were business owners, and not just any old business owners. We were literally the heart and soul of all of society. All of everything depended on us. And slowly but surely, through the civil rights movement, through the Great Migration, the KKK, and many, many, many other hosts of things, political and all, we've actually lost it. Now, everything that we have to outsource. That was done by design. That was what they wanted. That's how they wanted it, and it worked flawlessly. The fact of the matter is, we were not poor. We were not jacked up. We were extremely successful, and we will be in the future, because now that we know who we were, we can figure out who we are today and change our future. Does that make sense? Shout out to everybody in the building. I really, really, truly appreciate each and every one of y'all for being here. Like I said, y'all don't have to come up here. I literally just got off the jokes earlier, and y'all literally came back after a couple of hours later. You didn't have to do that, and I'm so appreciative of y'all doing that. Thank y'all so much. Kathy Smith, thank you for the super chat. Beautiful. She says, thank you, Vu. You are more than welcome. Thank you for coming in here and listening, because it wouldn't make sense for me to be on here if nobody was in here. So it's for y'all. It's for y'all who look forward to Educational Friday like me. That's why I come in here and do this. Thank you, beautiful. His Wonder Woman. Thank you for the super chat. Says thank you. No, thank you. Shout out to y'all, bruh. Thank you again for the super chat, His Wonder Woman. She says, we just stamped our name in history. They named a center after my cousin, first Black superintendent in Everman ISD. Oh my God, congratulations. And shout out to y'all for stamping y'all name in history. And I'm pretty sure we all can stamp our names. We just got to get that genealogy done. Thank you, His Wonder Woman. I appreciate you, beautiful. Daisha, thank you for the super chat, says that was funny down right before acquiring citizenship. Thank you, beautiful. I appreciate you. I don't know which one we talking about. It was a little while ago. Thank you, beautiful. Optimal Instincts, thank you for the super chat, says I've never forgot the 5th grade. Our history book listed ethnicities in economic order. White was at the top, Puerto Rican second to last, and black last. Psychological warfare. There you go. Not just in that. Everything we was taught. Every time we're taught anything about our history, they always got us coming from the bottom. They always got us on some Drake shit, started from the bottom, now we're here. And that's not the truth. It's psychological warfare. Thank you, Optimal Instincts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I like that name too. Daisha, thank you for the super chat. Says, Boo, can you do one educational Friday on the Willie Lynch letter? Absolutely. I'll write it down. I will definitely do so. Thank you, Daisha. We'll definitely do it. Diva, thank you for the super chat. Says the Negro Yearbook books have our ancestors' records of our wealth and business sold on Amazon. I have 3. Thank you, Diva. We'll check it out. Thank you. I appreciate you. And to all of y'all in the chat, shout out to everybody sending the jewels. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. I'm sorry. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Friday evening. Like the video, share it. Again, if God forbid something happens where it gets blocked, the whole uninterrupted live is on Rumble, Twitch, and Facebook. Voodoo Doll TV. Make sure y'all hit me up. I love y'all. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Make sure y'all like the video on your way out and share it as well. Shout out to Replay Gang. See y'all on the next one. Peace.
Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go! It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I want? Blaze up! Come on, Blaze up!
It's the beat for me.
Wow, 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we are. For your boy, for your boy, for your boy, hustle for your boy, fix it for your boy, drop it for your, wow, 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 lift it up. You talk more shit than a little bit. Back to Mother Africa. That's bullshit. Without question, we are all Black Americans. You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can watch Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.